In this module, you have already learned about the use of the period, colon, question mark, and exclamation point. In this video, I will explain some additional guidelines as described in Casagrande's punctuation book. In a name where a person's last name is preceded by the person's initials, each initial is followed by a period and a space. For example, T period space J period space Kitty. The AP style guide is an exception. It only uses a space after the period in the last initial before the last name. For example, T period J period space Kitty. Abbreviations of non-human proper nouns do not use periods. Examples: US, USA, CIA, FBI. One exception is that AP allows for periods in two-letter abbreviations. For example, U period S period, U period K period, U period N period. The periods are not used in news headlines. Another exception is the use of U period S period together with the abbreviated state names, not the two-letter postal state names. In book style, for example, N period J period comma U period S period, or W period VA period comma U period S period. From the perspective of all but the news style guides, there is no reason to use a space between the end of a URL and a period closing the sentence. If you intend to copy the URL from a document and paste it into a browser, you do need to be careful about not copying the period, or the browser search may not work. Remember that a single quotation mark and an apostrophe are not the same punctuation-wise. A period always follows an apostrophe if there is an apostrophe at the end of a sentence. Example: a good example of Northeastern slang is goin'. I often see mistakes in writing where a colon is added when it is not needed. For example, do not use a colon when a list is introduced by including or such as or for example. The test for figuring out whether to use a colon before a list is to ask yourself whether the content preceding the list is a complete sentence. If it is a sentence fragment, then the list completes the sentence and should not be separated from the start of the sentence with a colon. Example: we play a number of games on Fridays, including euchre, bridge, and canasta. If the material before a list is a sentence fragment, the sentence can usually be completed by adding the following or as follows. Then a colon can be used to introduce the list. For example, the recipe calls for colon, tomatoes, basil, and garlic is incorrectly punctuated. No colon is needed. To use a colon, we can rewrite the sentence to read, the recipe calls for the following: tomatoes, basil, and garlic. A colon may be used with a closing parenthesis or quotation mark, but it always follows those punctuation marks. An example: I was late, very late. I had overslept. A quotation that ends with a question mark is not followed by a comma. Example: are you going home at 4? Stanley asked. At the end of a sentence, a question mark always precludes a period. The only time a period and question mark are used together is when the sentence ends with an abbreviation or initial. Was Caesar killed in 44 BC or 44 AD? A question mark can immediately precede or follow an exclamation point when both marks are essential to the meaning of the sentence. In typography, there is a separate mark for this called an interrobang. It is written as follows. When a question ends with an internal question mark, do not use a double question mark. The internal question mark can also take place of the terminal question mark. Have you read, Is Paris Burning? The same rules that apply to a question mark apply to the exclamation point. A quotation that ends with an exclamation point is not followed by a comma. Look out, he said. An exclamation point always precludes a period, except with ending abbreviations or initials. He's late again. And double exclamation points should not be used. I can't believe he's reading How the Grinch Stole Christmas.